We're looking around at what else we might be able to change here. And I notice on my sidebar here, well, our tags here aren't dynamically populating, our archives aren't dynamically populating, and perhaps I'd want to click on those and actually, go to a listing of my posts by either tags or archives. So I think it would be a good exercise to just implement that quickly. So I'm going to go back to my application now, and we know that if this sidebar lives in our main app HTML file, we can go ahead and start there. So let's do that. I'm going to close up our resources, and I'm going to just open up the entire app HTML and app.js component. So within the app view model, well, first I'm going to actually go into common services and the post service, and I'll just show you that in our post service we have an all tags method, and we also have an all archives method. So this is what we're going to use to populate our sidebar, meaning that we need to pull our post service into our app view model. Let's do that now. So I'm going to import inject from the Aurelia framework. Then I'm going to import our post service, and that'll be from, where are we here? That'll be from common services post service. Then I will use our inject decorator and inject post service and make sure I use it within the constructor as well. Great. And so within the, I'll say within the attached lifecycle hook, that's generally where I prefer to make these backend calls. I will use the post service, and I will say, let's see what method we're going to use here. Let's start with our all tags method. So I'll get all tags, and since it's a promise, I'll say then with our data, let's say this dot tags equals data dot tags. And that's what's returned. If I go back to my post service, we can see within all tags, if this resolves correctly, then it's basically an object with a tags property here. So, of course, if this promise fails, I'll say catch error, and then I can say this dot error equals error dot message. And that's something we had fixed in the last video, is that we started handling our errors a little better. So this is a more appropriate way to catch errors from a promise. Great. So what I'm going to do is then transition over to my app view, this app.html file. I will scroll down and say, okay, we don't need all of these tags here, so I can remove that. And what I can say is for each of these links, I can just use a repeater. So repeat for tag of tags. Because again, if I go back to my view model, it's this dot tags equals data dot tags. So for each of the tags, we are going to repeat this, this link element and its contents. And so then I can just put the tag here. Perfect. And I will go back over to our application, make sure that's looking good. Give that a refresh. And sure enough, we have Aurelia, Lorem, JavaScript, Learning, and Kafka, which if you look through the posts, I can pretty much assure you, yeah, those are the 5 tags that are populated here. Awesome. So we should just go ahead and kind of repeat that exercise for archives. And we can actually probably do that pretty quickly using some copy and paste here. So basically within the attached lifecycle hook, I'm just going to paste that and say all archives. And this dot tags, I'm going to instead say this dot archives. And that's all we really need to do here. And then I can go back in the view, the app view. Again, take away all these redundant archives here. And this list element is what I'm going to repeat now. So repeat for archive of archives. And then here I can just list the archive. Great, well, let's go back to our web application. And we can see now our archive says December, August, and July. And if you look at our posts, December, August, and July. Perfect. But of course, we want to actually be able to click these links and go to somewhere that would show us the appropriate listing of posts. So let's do that now. The way I'm going to do that, even though there's probably a bunch of ways you can think about doing that, is I'm just going to create a component for our tag view, and I'll create a component for the archive view. That seems simple enough, and it really practices creating these components and working with them. So let's do that now. Let's go to our command line, close out of our app being watched there, and let's just use our generator, au generate, and we are going to generate a component, and our component will be tag view, and again we'll put it within our posts folder. And I'm going to do the same thing with archives. So I'll say archive view, and again put it within our posts folder. Great. So I'll just go ahead and start watching that app again. And when I come back to our code base here, I can open up the post folder and see I've got my archive view component and I've got my tag view component. Very cool. So what I'm going to do now is, instead of working with those directly, I'm going to go ahead and update the router to direct people to those pages when links are clicked. So let's go back to our app view model. And if you recall, we have our configure router method here down towards the bottom. And so I'm going to create two new routes. So I'm just going to copy this one and I'll paste it twice here. And so within this first one, I'll do it for tags. So let's just say we'll use tags. So we'll go to the route tag, and we will be passing a variable in our URL string called tag. This is going to be referred to as tag view whenever we build our routes. The module ID is going to be post/tag view, and perhaps our title will just be view post by tag. Great, let's do the same thing for our archives. Again, we can just make this quick change here. We can say it's going to be archives slash, and then a variable named archive in the URL string. The name will be archive view. Our module ID will be posts/archive view. Again, we already made that component. And then we can just call the title again view post by archive, and maybe this should be view posts by archive, view posts by archive. Yeah, that'll be good. I think that's certainly good enough. So what we can do, even though our components aren't really configured, let's just go back into our app view here, and let's start building out these routes. So on line 42 here, we have our tags, so we can just say route-href. Our route, as we know, is called tag view because we just set that up. But we also have to bind a parameter to it because it's expecting a tag. So when we bind this parameter, we could say that the tag will be tag, but we also know our JavaScript shorthand. We could just say tag. You know, if the property is the same as what you're passing to it, you can just go ahead and use that shorthand. Awesome. So let's just do the exact same thing. So I'm going to copy this over and do it for archives as well. So the route-href will be to archive view, and we are going to bind the archive parameter. Simple enough. And so if we go back to our application, if all is well, I can click on one of these, and we can see it says hello world because we haven't really done anything with our component, but we can see in the URL that our URL is looking exactly like we'd want it to, with the tag here and then the actual tag being displayed. As well, we can do this with our archives. I'll click on December 2017. Oh, it's giving me an error there, so there must be something that I misconfigured. I will go back to my app.js, and I spelled archive view incorrectly in my module ID, so it was throwing a fit. I'll go ahead and save that, go back to my application, and click on August 2017. Okay, so now the URL is looking as we would expect. When I click on one of the archives, again, when I click on one of the tags, but now we just need to make these components kind of look as we might expect. So I'm going to go ahead and open my code editor back up. I am going to go into my tag view JS. So this is the view model for the tag view. And I am going to just also take a peek at my post service. And we'll see that I can scroll down here and go figure, there is a method called posts by tag, and it takes a tag to it. It will, if it finds posts with the tag, it will resolve an object with this posts property. So good, that's what we are going to use. So back to this tag view model. Let's first import the Aurelia dependency injection container, and then we will import our post service, and we will inject that into this view model. So import, inject from Aurelia framework. Then we can import the post service from, and let's go back out. Go to common services post service, spell that correctly, and finally inject post service. Make sure to include it in the constructor. This dot post service equals post service. Great, so we've brought in our post service. And so now what I want to make sure to do is, typically I would use the attached lifecycle hook, but I want to make sure that I have access to the parameters passed through the URL. So I'm going to use the activate lifecycle hook, which takes those parameters. I will say this.tag equals the past tag. And then finally, I'm going to use the post service, and I will once again look at my post service method. It's posts by tag, so I'll just copy that over. Posts by tag, and I will use this dot tag. It's a promise, so then I will get the data, and I will say this dot posts equals data dot posts. And if we don't get the result we want, we might have an error. So let's catch that error, and we will handle it accordingly. So we'll say this dot error equals error dot message. Awesome. So now we're getting the data that we want, but we need to display it within our actual view. So if I get the tag view.html, yeah, this is the default. But if we think about what this tag view HTML might actually look like, I'm going to go back to my application, and it might actually look a lot like this index. In fact, I'm just going to say it's going to look exactly like the index, except maybe we'd have some indication of what tag that we're actually looking at. So let's just, for now, go to our index view and copy exactly what this looks like. So I'll head over to our index.html file. I'm just going to copy this whole thing and go to our tag view.html, open that up and paste it. And let's see, well, yeah, we have posts, so I can repeat this for each post of posts, so that looks good. We have an error handler, that looks good as well. One other thing that we might want, though, is if I go back and look at my tag view model, I might want to display which tag we're looking at right now. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our tag view.html, and I'll use something similar to this error. I think this will be fine. If we use, instead of a danger alert, we could just use, and not bind this only if there's an error, but we can use a, I think dark would look good. And we can just put the tag there. So I'll save that. So once again, just to be totally comprehensive here, if I go to the tag view component view model, we are using Aurelia's dependency injection container to inject our post service. And then within the activate lifecycle hook, we're making sure we're getting the tag from the parameter. We are using our post service to look up all the posts by the tag that we've gotten from our parameters. And then we are setting this .posts equal to the returned posts. And within our tag view, we are then iterating through those posts, and we are using our handy custom element so that our code is nice and clean. And we're also going to display which tag we are looking at. Great, so I am going to go back to my browser now, and let's test this out. I'm going to click on Aurelia, and there we go. So now it's showing that we're looking at Aurelia here, and the only post I see is tagged with Aurelia. If I click on JavaScript, we now see JavaScript here, and I've got 2 posts tagged with JavaScript. Again, if I click on Kafka, then I just get my 3rd post, which only is tagged with Kafka. So that's looking pretty great. I'm actually going to update this and make it a little more interesting than just saying the tag there. So I'm going to go back and say viewing posts by tag. Yeah, just to make it a little more interesting. So once again, I'll go back and now, yeah, viewing posts by tag learning, viewing posts by tag Aurelia, viewing posts by tag JavaScript. Very cool. And now we're going to really power through doing this for the archives. So how we're going to do that is basically copy and paste the content of the tags component over to the archives component. So let's see how fast we can do this. I'm going to take the tag view code here and go to archive view. I'm going to paste that in, except I'm going to say viewing posts created in, and this is going to ultimately be archive. Great. And then I'm going to go to our tag view model, copy all that, go to archive view.js, paste that in, make sure I keep that old class name though of archive view. And instead of tag here, I'm going to say this.tag is archive. I'm going to make sure that I'm using the right method on the post service. So let me check that. Yeah, it's post by archive, go figure. And so I'll go back to my archive view model and say posts by archive. And then everything else is basically going to be the same here. So very little difference, but now it should be up and running. I'm going to go ahead and open my application and click on December 2017. Great, viewing posts created in December 2017. Here's my only post from December. Again, August 2017, same deal. July 2017, same deal. Great, everything's looking really, really nice now. But the only thing that's not really working currently is I didn't update the links within each post here. So for example, if I click Kafka here, it's not filtering, or JavaScript here, it's also not filtering. Let's go ahead and fix that really quick. So we know this lives within our custom element. So let's go there and build out that link very quickly. Within our resources folder, let's open that up. Let's open our elements folder and go to blogpost.html. This will be in our view. And so right here, our href HTML reference here, we just want to say route -href, and the route will be to named tag view, and again params bind, And we'll use our little shorthand here just to bind tag to tag. We're going to just do tag. And I'll save that, open up our browser, make sure that that works. It looks like it does. So I'm going to go back. I'll click on JavaScript. Great. And again, since we did the custom element, if I go and view one of these posts, that also is propagated to this view as well. So I can click on one of these here, and yeah, it works pretty well. So I think in the next episode, we're going to get ready to start thinking about letting people log in and sign up and that sort of stuff. It's not going to be it's certainly not going to be really robust authentication. In fact, it's not going to be really authentication at all, because I don't want to give the impression that we can truly implement authentication just using a front-end solution. So, but at any rate, stay tuned, and I'm glad that you've come along for this, and I'll talk to you then. Thank you so much.